Hello, welcome to the channel. In this episode we fight the wind and rain as we make our way into Torres del Paine National Park. We left Puerto Natales under clearing skies, but with a strong westerly wind blowing off the sea. We headed north on Route 9 and overshot the turnoff to our route Y150, but quickly realised our mistake and turned back. It was on Y150 where we encountered the strongest wind of the entire trip in the lee of a large hill for about 3 kilometres. I had to slow down to about 30 kilometres per hour as there was a real danger of being blown off course and off the road. It started to rain as we arrived at the park entrance. The temperature had dropped to 6 degrees Celsius, so we paid our 30,000 pesos entrance fee and splashed our way to our campsite at Lago Pijo, where we paid another 80,000 pesos for the next 2 nights. The camp has a restaurant, hot showers and plenty of shelters for the tent, as the winds there can be very strong, as we were to find out. The clouds cleared a little in the evening to partly reveal the mountains we had come to see, and we braved the bitter wind to take some photos. The next morning, the mountains had cleared enough for some dawn photography, and I managed some nice shots of the sheer walls lit up in the early morning light. After breakfast, I did some more chain maintenance before we drove a few kilometres back down the road to Salto Grande, a spectacular 10-metre waterfall that drains Lago Nordenskjold into Lago Pijo. The whole area around here has unfortunately been scarred by wildfires, started by careless tourists that have burned tens of thousands of hectares over recent years, leaving the scarred remains of trees dotting the landscape. Later that day, I took a walk up to Mirador Condor, overlooking the camp for a higher outlook of the land, lakes and mountains. Well worth the effort. The weather forecast for the next day was very bad. Clarice had contacted our accommodation in El Calafate and was informed that the roads were likely to be closed and we were better off to stay where we were for the next day. As forecast, the storm arrived and intensified during the day, so we whiled away the time, sleeping in the tent, eating, brewing hot drinks and looking out the window of the restaurant. Little did we know of the tragedy that was unfolding in the mountains nearby that claimed the lives of 5 hikers at John Garner Pass on the O circuit. 2 Mexican, 2 German and 1 Brit all succumbed to hypothermia in the storm. A terrible and preventable tragedy. The next morning cleared enough for some sunrise photos, so I was up at dawn at the lakeside, snapping as much as I could while trying not to let my fingers freeze. We packed up the tent and took the long way round back to Route 9 on Y290 and Y200 before reaching the border post at Cerro Castillo, which to our dismay was crowded with buses and hundreds of tourists. It took over 2 hours to clear the border. We skipped lunch, took the short dirt road stretch of Ruta 30 before once more taking Ruta 40 to the tiny town of Esperanza. The wind was still strong, but it was behind us, so we enjoyed relative calm before turning left at Esperanza for the tiring crosswind leg to El Calafate. The imposing, sharp fang of Mount Fitzroy came into view from over 100 kilometres away as we made our way to El Calafate, where we struggled to find our accommodation as Clarissa's phone battery had gone flat and the Garmin couldn't find the hotel. We eventually got enough charge into the phone from the bike and soon found the hotel. next day, we rode the 80 kilometres out to Perito Moreno Glacier, initially past Lago Argentino, the largest lake in Argentina, at 1,415 square kilometres, 32 kilometres at its widest and 719 metres at its deepest. The glacier is tourism on an industrial scale, but is impressive and expansive enough to be worth braving the crowds. We saw a couple of chunks fall into the lake, but no massive carving. An interesting part of the geography is that in the regular advance and retreat of the glacier, it forms a dam that divides the lake. This makes the southern part look like a hydro lake, as the water level rises several meters before the glacier recedes and the dam breaks. I imagine it must be a very impressive sight to see as one lake floods into another. After several hours watching and waiting in the sun for a large iceberg to carve off the glacier, we eventually headed back to town for a restaurant dinner and a well-earned sleep. That's it for this video. Join us next time for the amazing peaks of Fitzroy and the town of El Chaltén.